I'm 90 years old. I'll be 91 in April if I make it that far. The doctors say I'm doing fine, but at this age, you stop pretending those reassurances mean much. What I need to tell you isn't about dying, though. It's about the 70 years I spent chasing something that doesn't exist the way I thought it did. I believed happiness was a destination, a place you arrived at after enough correct decisions. I genuinely thought that if I worked hard enough, planned carefully enough, and made all the right choices, I'd eventually step into some permanent state of contentment, like walking through a doorway into a room where everything finally felt complete. I was wrong about that. Completely, devastatingly wrong. And I didn't figure it out until I was 83 years old, standing in a hospital room watching my wife of 57 years take her last breath. Her name was Dorothy. We met when I was 22. She worked at the bank downtown where I deposited my paycheck every Friday. I remember she had this laugh that made the fluorescent lights seem less depressing. We were married within a year. I loved her. I need you to understand that. But I spent most of our marriage waiting for something else. Waiting to feel the way I thought I was supposed to feel. Like I'd made it. Like I'd earned the happiness I'd been working toward. When we were in our 30s, I worked 60-hour weeks at the manufacturing plant. Came home exhausted most nights. Dorothy would have dinner ready, and she'd ask about my day, and I'd give her 3 or 4 sentences while my mind churned through work problems. I told myself I was building our future, getting us closer to that place where we could finally relax and enjoy life. She'd suggest things sometimes, small things. Want to drive up to the lake this weekend? Or let's plant a garden in the backyard. I'd say sure, but then work would need me, or I'd be too tired, or it would seem like we should save money instead. There was always a reason to postpone. I had this colleague, Frank Hutchison. We worked together for 22 years, from 1974 to 1996. Frank was one of those guys who seemed fundamentally content despite having less than everyone else. Smaller house, older car, never got the promotions I did. He'd leave work exactly at 5 o'clock every single day. Wouldn't stay late even when management hinted it would help his career. I remember asking him once, must have been 1981 or so, why he didn't put in more hours. Try to move up. He looked at me like I'd asked him why he didn't stop breathing. My daughter's 8 years old, he said. In 10 years, she'll be 18 and gone. I'm not missing that. I thought he lacked ambition. I genuinely did. I thought I understood something he didn't about building a stable future. Frank died of a heart attack in 1998. He was 59. I went to the funeral and his daughter Sarah spoke. She must have been 25 by then. She told stories about him coaching her softball team every spring, about him teaching her to change a tire when she was 16, about family dinners where he'd make them all say one good thing that happened that day. I sat there in the pew, listening, and I couldn't remember the last time I'd had dinner with my own kids without checking my watch. My son Michael was born in 1971. My daughter Anne came along in 1974. Good kids. They grew up healthy and smart. I made sure they had what they needed: college funds, stable home. I was providing for them. But I wasn't there. Not really. I was present in body but absent in attention. Always thinking about the next thing, the next goal, the next milestone that would finally deliver that sense of arrival I was chasing. Michael tried to talk to me about his interests. He went through this phase in high school, must have been 1987 or 88, where he was obsessed with photography. He'd show me pictures he'd taken, and I'd glance at them for 5 seconds and say, "That's great, buddy," while reading the newspaper. He stopped showing me after a while. Anne was quieter. She'd sit at the dinner table and watch me, and sometimes I'd catch this look in her eyes like she was studying a stranger. I told myself we'd connect later, when I had more time, when work settled down, when I finally reached that plateau where I could breathe and be present. Here's the thing about that plateau. It doesn't exist. I retired at 65 in 2000. I'd worked for 43 years. I had a decent pension, a paid-off house, some savings. Dorothy and I finally had time together. This was supposed to be it, the arrival, the reward for all that delayed gratification. But I didn't know how to stop waiting. I'd spent so long living in the future that I'd forgotten how to exist in the present. Dorothy would suggest trips, and I'd worry about the cost, even though we could afford it. She'd want to try new hobbies together, and I'd think about all the practical things I should be doing instead. I remember one afternoon in 2003, we were sitting on the back porch, and she said, "Do you realize we've been married 46 years and we've never just spent a whole day doing nothing together?" I said, "We're doing nothing right now." She looked at me with such sadness. "No," she said. "You're making a mental list of everything you need to fix around the house. I can see it on your face." She was right. I was. I had a neighbor named Bill Morrison. He lived 2 doors down for 18 years. We'd wave to each other, exchange pleasantries about the weather, complain about property taxes, surface level stuff. Bill's wife, Linda, died suddenly in 2005. Aneurysm. She was 68. At the funeral, I heard people talking about these elaborate plans Bill and Linda had made. They were going to drive Route 66 the following summer, take a cruise to Alaska, visit all the national parks. They'd been saving for years, had the whole thing mapped out. Linda died 3 months before they were supposed to leave. Bill stood at the reception afterwards, and someone asked him if he'd still take the trip, honor her memory or something. He just shook his head. "What's the point?" he said. "It was supposed to be with her." He sold his house 6 months later and moved to Arizona to be near his son. I never saw him again, but I think about him sometimes, about how he thought they had time. We all think we have time. Dorothy got sick in 2016, pancreatic cancer. They gave her 6 months. She lasted 7. Those 7 months were the first time in decades I stopped living in the future. There was no future left to live in. It was just us and the present was slipping away so fast I could feel it evaporating. We talked more in those 7 months than we had in the previous 20 years. Real talking, not logistics and schedules, but actual conversation. She told me about disappointments she'd never mentioned, small heartbreaks. Times she'd wanted me to see her, and I'd looked right through her. I apologized for things I hadn't even realized needed apologizing for. She held my hand one afternoon. This was maybe 2 weeks before the end, and she said, "I was happy with you. I need you to know that, but I wish you'd been happy with me." I told her I was. I told her I'd always been happy. She smiled, but it was sad. "No," she said. "You were always waiting to be happy, always thinking it would happen later, after the next thing." She died on a Tuesday morning in March 2017. I was holding her hand. The room was quiet except for the machines, and then the machines went quiet too. Standing there, I realized I'd spent 57 years married to someone I loved desperately, and I'd postponed actually being with her until it was too late. I thought I was building a happy life. I was actually just building a life. Happiness was supposed to be happening during the building. I missed it. I missed almost all of it. Michael is 54 now. Anne is 51. They're both kind to me. They visit regularly, help with things I can't do anymore. But we don't have the relationship we could have had. That window closed decades ago. You can't build intimacy in old age that you refuse to build in youth. I see my grandchildren sometimes. They're polite. They hug me when they arrive and when they leave. But I'm essentially a stranger to them, an old man they're obligated to visit. I don't have stories to tell them about their parents' childhoods because I wasn't paying attention during their parents' childhoods. That's what I can't fix. The absence. The decades of absence. You can't retroactively be present, The moments are gone. They existed once, and I was physically in them, but I wasn't actually there. And now they're just gone, completely unrecoverable. I live alone now in a smaller place. The house was too big after Dorothy died. Too many empty rooms that used to have people in them. I've had a lot of time to think these past 7 years. A lot of quiet hours trying to understand where I went wrong. Because I followed all the rules. I worked hard, I provided, I was responsible, I did everything you're supposed to do to build a good life. But I missed the actual living of it. If you're listening to this and you're younger than I am, which statistically you are, I want to tell you something. Not as advice. I'm not in a position to give advice, just as information. Things I didn't understand that I wish someone had told me. Happiness isn't something you achieve. It's not a prize for correct behavior. It's not waiting for you at the end of a career or after you've accumulated enough security. It doesn't work that way. It's happening right now, in whatever moment you're in, or it's not happening at all. The times you think are just ordinary, those are your life. That's it. There isn't a better version waiting later. If I could go back, I would have left work at 5 o'clock like Frank did, every single day, without guilt. I would have understood that being home for dinner wasn't a luxury to be earned, it was the whole point. I would have looked at Michael's photographs and actually seen them. I would have asked questions. I would have learned what mattered to him instead of assuming he'd always be there to tell me later. I would have planted that garden with Dorothy, all the gardens. I would have driven to the lake every single weekend she suggested it. I would have said yes to the trips and the spontaneous ideas and the impractical, joyful wastes of time, because none of it was a waste. The waste was all the hours I spent preparing for a future that never arrived because I was too busy preparing to actually live it. What I didn't understand was that contentment comes from attention, from being fully in whatever you're doing, not from the thing itself, but from your presence in it. I could have had that at any moment. At 25 or 47 or 63, it was always available. I just kept looking past it. The other thing I didn't understand is that the people in your life aren't permanent fixtures. They're temporary companions on a temporary journey. My brain knew that intellectually, but I didn't feel it. I acted like Dorothy would always be there, like my kids would always be young and available, like there would always be time later to be the person I meant to be. There's never time later. Later is a lie we tell ourselves so we can postpone the discomfort of being vulnerable and present. I'm not saying quit your job or abandon responsibility. I'm saying the reason you have the job and the responsibility is to support a life, not to replace it. The work is supposed to be in service of the living. I got it backwards. If I could go back, I would have touched Dorothy more. Just physically touched her, held her hand while watching television, put my arm around her in the kitchen, hugged her before leaving for work. Small, continuous reminders that she was real and there and important. I would have asked my kids uncomfortable questions. Are you happy? Do you feel alone? Is there anything I'm doing that hurts you? And then I would have shut up and listened to answers I might not have wanted to hear. I would have called my parents more. They died in 1992 and 1995. I thought I'd have more time with them, too. There are some books that helped me understand this after it was too late. Maybe they'll help you before. The Denial of Death by Ernest Becker. It's not easy reading, but it explains why we distract ourselves from what matters. Being Peace by Thich Nhat Hanh. It's about being present, which I never learned how to do. And When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Kalanithi. He figured out at 37 what took me 83 years. I don't know how much longer I have. Could be months, could be another year or two. My body still works mostly, but everything's slower now. Harder. I'm not afraid of dying, I'm past that. What bothers me is the weight of all those missed moments. They sit with me. Dorothy laughing in the kitchen while I read the paper in the next room. Michael at 16 trying to show me something he was proud of. Anne watching me with those sad eyes. Frank leaving work at 5 o'clock while I stayed until 7. All of it right there, right in front of me, and I looked past it toward some imaginary future happiness that never came. You can't get it back. Once the moment's gone, it's gone. That's not metaphorical. I mean it literally. Those specific chances to be present with the people I loved don't exist anymore. They happened once, and I wasn't there, and now they're just nothing. If this meant something to you, I'm glad I told you. I don't know who you are or what your life looks like, but if you're waiting for happiness to arrive after the next achievement or milestone, I hope you'll consider stopping. It's already here, in whatever ordinary moment you're in right now. It's been here the whole time. I wish I'd known that at 30. I wish I'd known it at 50. I know it now at 90, and it's too late to do anything except tell you. Maybe you'll do better than I did. If you have stories like this, or thoughts about what I've said, I'd be grateful to hear them. Leave a comment if you're willing. And if you want to hear more from people like me, people running out of time and telling the truth because lies feel too expensive now, there are other stories on this channel. I'm 90 years old. I'll be gone soon. But those moments I missed with Dorothy and my kids and everyone else I loved, they're already gone. They left decades ago while I was busy waiting for my life to start.